guys. So we're here with the Real Talk with Claudia Mostegazzi. Yes, I still look at the board to see what's the name of my podcast. I apologize for that. I'll get it right one of these days. And I also want to apologize for last week. So I didn't have a podcast last week because I was in Dallas at my daughter's Alexa mock trial competition. So they won and they went to state, and it was held in Dallas. So I was out since Thursday. So we didn't have a chance to record. I had to reschedule my guests. But I'm super excited for this week's episode. So I have Angela Escamilla with me, yes, and she's with A&GE Credit Repair, yes, ma'am. Right? Yes, ma'am. So it's very important. You guys know that the biggest part, so what are the three things that we look when we're doing a mortgage loan is credit, assets, and income. But credit holds really
a big factor.
The main factor. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really pretty much it. So it's very important to have really good resources. And that's why I invited Angela so that she can tell us a little bit about credit for all of those out there that, you know, you're worried that your credit is not where it's supposed to be. You want some tips about like what to do to actually get your credit better. She's gonna talk to us about that. So Angela, yes. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And yes, I do help people with their credit. That's a very important, thing to have a really nice credit score, even if you want to buy a home, a vehicle. There's so many things that can benefit for having a great
good credit. Yes. So what we look for when you're buying a house is, depending on the program that you're using, that's the credit requirement. So normally government loans, we can go as low as 580 credit score, and then conventional loans is normally 620. So those are the numbers that we kind of like keep in mind. Now, you guys have to remember, if you're looking for down payment assistance, you have to have a 622. So that's where it kind of like gets a little bit, So tell us a little bit about what a consumer should look into, or like what are some, give us like 3 tips that people can think about starting to do or be aware not to do so that credit doesn't get affected.
Okay. So you really want to look at your credit reports. You can always go on free annual credit report and retrieve your credit reports for free. They don't have the scores, but at least you can pull them and look at what is on there that doesn't belong to you. It can be as little as names, employers, any accounts. Sometimes whenever you have the same name as a parent, they may have some credit on there that doesn't even belong to you, and you're not even aware of that, So it's really important to go over your reports and look at anything that's inaccurate on there. Okay.
I have seen that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you pull credit and I'm like, oh, you have this car. And they're like, no. And I'm like, but you have this. No. Yeah. I'm like, and it's the dad.
Yes. My husband and his dad have the same name, and it's happened before. So that's like very important because, your score can be a lot higher if there isn't a debt there. There could be a negative account on there, and right. You not even know about it. So that's very important to just make sure that everything on your reports are accurate and they belong to you. Okay. The other thing I recommend too is, a lot of people don't realize they need credit, in order for their scores to have any kind of increase, or, they need some kind of credit. A lot of people will come to me and they're like, my score doesn't move. It's been here, it's not doing anything. Well, all you have is negative items on there. You have no credit, and you need to start building. And credit can take years to build,
Right.
You can be stuck and have a great credit score, but you're just stuck there because it's the history, your history. That's a big part of your credit score. So a lot of people are unaware of that. And so we want to educate them and let them know, hey, look into a secure credit card. I do have some that I recommend. And then they can always get with the bank, if they have a good relationship with them as well. So
normally, for just the people that are listening, how long does it take for a credit card to be reported into the credit?
So usually with the one that I recommend, it can take up to 30 days for them to actually report it. Okay. So, it just depends on the actual company. A lot of times I recommend this one because they don't pull your credit. There are some people that can go to the banks and even though they're secure credit cards and you put your own money, you're not guaranteed because your credit score is low.
Right.
So this is why I like the card that I recommend for them. They do, like I said, require $200 minimum deposit, but you have to start somewhere. Unfortunately, when you don't have credit, your interest rates are going to be higher. It's just going to unfortunately be that situation until you're able to build the credit and get a better credit score to get better offers.
Right. What about late payments and collections? How are those? I mean, there's a lot. Here's the thing, guys. I've been in the industry for 15 years and you hear a different story depending on who you talk to. Yeah. So collections affect here, collections don't affect there, collections already hit it. Medical, like medical collections, we don't count for the mortgage industry. But how, like, all of that, like what really truly affects, like, for example, when you go into collection, it's gonna ding your score. Does it keeps doing it as the years pass, or is it a one-time thing? How does that work?
So usually whenever you have a negative item on your report, it can hit because whenever the credit bureaus go in there and they report what's on there, it's like a new account and it can lower your score. Now with medical bills in July of this year, they're actually going to remove anything 500 and under.
Oh, that's a good news to know.
Yeah,
is that going to help the credit go up when they remove them?
Yes, because that's a negative item removed. Okay, so that's something that people need to look into. If you have anything 500 and under, they're actually going to be taking those off of your report, which helps because, that is going to help with the increase of the score. So that's always a good thing.
What are some of the things that you actually help people correct? And let me do a parenthesis here before I keep asking you this question. So you have to remember that when you go, so there's like 3 different type of credit. So when you buy a car, that's a different FICO that when you go and apply for a credit card or when you actually go and apply for a house. So they're not looking at the same credit score, the 3 of them. So it's very important to understand that when you're looking into buying a house, that you actually go with a mortgage lender. Unfortunately, and I hear it all the time, almost daily, where people call me and they're like, oh, I have a 700 credit score. I'm like, oh, okay. So when was the last time that you checked your credit? Oh, every day on myfico.com. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really your credit score. So it's very important. It's almost imperative that if you are looking into buying a house, you reach out to a mortgage lender. We're going to pull your credit. And then if there's anything that we have to work on, then that's what we will send you with Angela so that she can work you through. So what are some of the things that you can help them fix?
So I always, whenever I'm sent from a lender or they do come to me, I always look thoroughly at the credit report, and there's always going to be, charge-offs, collections, late payments. It could be, again, wrong names, wrong addresses, wrong employers. So anything on there that's affecting your score has an inaccuracy is what I'm going to work to remove. Okay. Now we don't just go in there and say, okay, let's just work and remove all these things that you owe. That's not the way we do business. I'm a very honest company. I'm here to help people. I don't want to be in a situation where we're being dishonest to customers and they don't think I'm trustworthy. That's one thing I just do not want to have a reputation for. Okay.
And that's another thing that is very important because I've seen it to where, I get the credit report and then there's all these dispute accounts and you're like, okay, so you're disputing, you don't owe this. And they're like, no, I do owe it. I in college and I had the credit card and I didn't pay it out. And I said, okay, well then what are you disputing? Like, so you can dispute inaccuracies. Yes.
Inaccuracies.
Okay, I said it right. Sorry.
It's okay.
I play my Mexican card. I speak Spanish. If you make fun of me, talk to me in Spanish and we'll see. So if there's anything that is not truthful, then she can help you remove it. Now, one thing that, I was very pleased to hear before we started the interview. So When you're buying a house, you cannot have dispute accounts. So it's very important that you follow the instructions that Angela will give you. Meaning, if she's working on a dispute to get something removed, then she needs to walk you through how to remove the dispute before you even come to me. Because if you come to me and it hasn't been removed and you still have the dispute and she didn't finalize her process, that can be actually bad instead of good. And then you're going to think, oh, well, Angela didn't do her job. No, you didn't follow the instructions.
And that is important because it's happened before. I mean, like I said, we want to be honest here. This is real. This is a real podcast. We want to get everything out there. And I've had people come to me and they call me, well, I didn't get approved for my home because you didn't do this. And I'm like, you never told me you were going there. Like, I need to know these things. Because while in the program, you shouldn't be applying for anything until I tell you it's time to do that. Okay. And that's where I think a lot of people get a little upset, is because, we need to have that relationship and conversation with each other as, me being the credit repair company and them being the customer. I need to know what's going on. If I don't know what's going on, then it's not going to work out. It's not going to work. So I always want to have that relationship with my customers where, it's a personal thing, because if you want to buy a home, I want you to get that home. That's our goal. That's what I want to do. And I love to help people. When I get the call and they're like, I got approved for my home. Oh my gosh, that's like the best feeling. Or my car. It could be something simple, of just having their score to go over a 400 to a 6 something. And they're like, oh my gosh, like, what did you do? That's why I do my job. That's why I do this. That's what I love about it, is helping people. I've been in the real estate industry. I've been in the financial industry, and I've, doing what I do now, it's just so much joy whenever I help people. That's just what I love to do, is help people.
How long have you been doing credit repair?
So I've been doing it. This is my 6th year actually doing it by myself. I actually was working under my sister-in-law in the Valley. And I went ahead and opened mine here with, but she's my mentor, Veronica Escamilla. Thank you so much. So yeah, she's
gonna get charged for that. So that's advertising. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, we're all family, and she is my mentor, and she taught me a lot, and so I was blessed to be able to come here to Corpus and branch off of my own, and start helping people here. Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
So 6 years in the industry. Tell me a little bit more about you. Any kids?
Yes, I do. I have one child. She's 26.
Oh my God, girl. 26. You look 25.
No, she's 26. She's an RN. We're so proud of her.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's working at Spawn South. I am married. We've been married for 26 years.
Oh,
We're
congratulations.
High school sweethearts. Yeah. So, I'm blessed. That's all I can say about that. But yeah, it's been great.
So what is the length of time when you meet with a client, you review the credit report, and you tell them, okay, this is what we're going to work on? What's the average time frame that it takes to see something move?
Okay. So our goal is for you to see results within the first 30 days. We don't guarantee anything. Like I said, we're very honest. But a full program, it's 6 to 12 months. That depends on your situation. And if they're following the program, that's where it gets tricky. Because if I'm doing my part and they're not doing it, they're not going to see the results, and they're not going to see, they're not going to be able to fulfill whatever goal they want to do, as far as buying a home or car or anything like that. But that's where it's a little hard, whenever you're like, okay, we're getting these items removed, but then they're applying for stuff, or they're defaulting on something. They're getting late payments, and you're having to call them and say, hey, what are you doing? We were right there, but now that you added that, we're back to square one.
Or you pay late. And
yes.
One time I had a guy that actually we were doing their mortgage loan, and he had co-signed for a car for the son, and the son paid late.
Oh, yeah.
And it was 100 points that dropped.
Yeah. And see, I always tell my customers, I don't care if it's your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, do not co-sign for anybody, because they do not care about your credit. It doesn't belong to them. So they're not going to be the ones that suffer when you want to buy a house or you want to buy a vehicle. So, I always tell them, do not do it. I know that you want to be helpful, but you have to really trust this person. They have to really know
And I'm
be
going
on
to tell you
top of their
something
bills.
about that. So we see a lot on the cars.
Yes.
Like if you co-sign for a car on the mortgage roll, both of the names have to be on the loan.
Oh gosh.
And if the other person is making the payment, we're going to ask you for 12 months of bank statements showing that the payment is coming out from their account in order not to count the payment.
Wow.
Because even though you don't have, like, you can say, well, that's not my car. I
Yes.
just co-sign and she's paying for it, but she's paying cash. We're going to have to count that payment against you. And you might not qualify for a loan because of that car payment. So it's very important that you like keep an eye on those things. And again, I mean, it's just like everything. I mean, if you don't go and check your credit and see where you are, you're never going to get where you need to get.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So what is another thing? I know there's a lot of saying about like the 30% credit, only utilize 30% of the credit limit of the card. That's one. Two, obviously pay on time.
Yeah.
I mean,
and usually, like you said, 30%. 30% is realistic, but to make a difference, you want to be under 10%, and that's all your cards together. It's not just one; it's everything. Your total credit limit. Yes.
So let's say you have 10 cards with $1,000, which is $10,000.
Let's just say you have $10,000. You want to be under 10% of that $10,000.
So $1,000 altogether.
To make the biggest difference. Okay.
Impact.
Now, and I always tell my customers, it's okay to use your credit cards, but just understand that when you use them, your score is going to drop. But once you pay them, they're going to go back up. Okay. We all have emergencies. You may have to use them, and that's understandable. But just understand that your score is going to drop. And looking at your credit score every day will drive you nuts because it's constantly going to be fluctuating. When you use your cards, when you make a payment, I have people that will call me or text me every day like, oh my gosh, why did it go down this? Why did it go back up? And I'm like, look, you have to wait a couple of weeks because you will drive yourself crazy looking at your credit. Do it. Yes. Definitely.
What about, so let me tell you how I like to explain credit.
Okay.
Obviously you have to have a story about like how you present it to the client. So I have this class and I talk about the credit, and I've always said credit is like a report card. I'm like, your homework is to make your payments every month on time.
Yes.
And if you don't, 1 month, and you could have 10 years making your payments on time. If you fail 1 month, that's it. Game over. That's they're going to take a lot of points and it's going to take a while. Like, as a matter of fact, there's some that actually have bigger effect, like mortgage late payments, car late payments, installment late payments than, maybe a credit card, but a credit card still affects you.
Yes.
So any late payments, that's kind of like your homework. And then I tell them, I said, and the big test is when they give you like a credit card and they're like, here you go, you have $5,000. How much are you going to spend? Because if you go and spend the $5,000, your credit is going to tank. Now, the other thing about that is I get a lot of people to ask me, or when I tell them like, oh, like we need to pay down on these cards and this is how many points you're going to get or whatever, which is just an estimate.
Yes.
They will go and pay off everything. Yeah. And I'm like,
no.
That's like literally not the American dream. The American dream is to have debt.
Yes.
If you don't have debt, there's no history, so there's no homework, there's no tests. So what are they going to grade you on?
Yes. A lot of there's so many factors and there's so much education on credit that people don't know, and that's why I wanted to come on this podcast. A lot of people don't realize that payment history is a big part of your score. So if you don't have anything you're making payments to, you're not going to see a big increase, and it's just knowing what to do. And that's why I have my company and I give free consultations. I don't charge for people to call me. I love to share my knowledge. There's a lot of companies that are like, oh, I don't want to tell them my secrets, or I don't want to do that. I'm sorry, but I'm here to help people. I'm here to educate people. And I want to share my knowledge with people. I want everybody in Corpus to have 800 scores. I mean, we'd have a better economy, you know?
Right.
Right.
No,
but
that's
I mean,
true.
yeah. And we were taught as, again, we're Hispanic, so we are, we weren't taught about credit. I wasn't. I don't know about you.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Either.
My mom was always pay cash for everything, pay cash. Or if we don't have the money, like, don't buy it. But
that's the mentality
mm-hmm.
of a lot of people. Is like, I want to tell you a story. So I had one time a doctor, and he was buying his retirement home. So he owned a mortgage on his primary residence, and he was buying, the house where he was going to retire.
Yes.
And it was a lake house, very pretty house. So when I pulled credit, his credit was like a 680. Mm-hmm. And of course, doctor, like no debt. The only debt that he had was the mortgage. Yes. And I remember I'm not going to say he cussed at me because he didn't cuss at me, but he was so pissed because it's like, what do you mean 680? I should have perfect credit. And I was like, well, doctor, like you don't have anything, like,
just your house.
And so, well, fast forward, the lake house was being built. We're getting ready to close. I have to re-pull credit, and we're on like the 660s. And I'm like, what do you do? He went and paid off the mortgage.
Oh no.
I'm like,
yes.
And he's all like, well, what do you mean? That should have brought my credit higher. I'm like, nope. I'm like, now you have no history, no credit. I'm like, you still qualify for the loan. Yes. Your interest rate just went up. Yes. Blah, blah, blah. He said like, well, what can you do? And I'm like, absolutely nothing. I'm like, there's nothing you can do because you don't have credit.
Yeah.
So there's just little things that you guys have to actually allow a professional and somebody with knowledge to go over it.
Yes. And I have the same situations where I'll, the customer thinks if I go pay everything off, it's going to, help me. And what you don't realize is revolving credit is different than like a auto loan or just a regular loan. If you go and you pay off your car that you had for 5 or 6 years, all that payment history is completely eliminated and is no longer going to be a factor in your score. Okay. So revolving like a credit card, it is going to be there regardless. It's not going to close unless you close it or you default on it. Okay. Not like a car loan or a loan.
Right. Yes. It's not going to end.
No, it's not going to end. And that's why you need some kind of revolving credit, because let's say you do pay your car off. Unfortunately, we do have to pay it at some point. And if it closes and you have all these other, open positive credit, to back you up because this is closing, it won't be such a hard hit. Okay?
Right.
But I've had the same situation. Well, I paid my car off and I'm like, oh my gosh, not the best. It's going to lower your score. Well, I thought it was going to help me. No, it's not going to help you.
Actually, I want to tell you my personal story. I was so frustrated because I really don't have much debt. And then here we go, right? I don't have debt. But I have, I know better to have, 2-3 credit cards that you utilize.
Sure.
But my credit will never go over 720. And I was like, dude, like, what is this? Like, why can't, like, I pay everything on time? And like, it would just not move. Like, there was no movement. So come to find out, basically, so this one credit card that I was using, like I do all my expenses there and then pay it at the end, like full pay the whole credit card. Well, I was paying it after the reporting date.
Yes.
So my credit report was reporting my car almost maxed out every month.
Yes.
So that's why it would not.
Yeah, it wasn't helping you because when the credit bureaus reported, then it was your maxed out balance.
Correct.
Yes. And
so it was looking like, oh, this chick is always like owes a lot of money and like, and the credit wasn't going to go up. Yeah. So basically what this girl told me, she was like, just change your payday.
Yes.
And I did, and boom.
Because usually it's the statement balance that you want to find that date, and you can call the credit card companies and find out when that is because you want to pay it before it reports.
So when does the credit cards report?
Well, some credit cards will report. They report usually every 30 days. Whenever you make your payment. it's 30 days after that. Some can wait 2 months. Like I've seen some that are like, oh my gosh, they're not even reporting for a couple of months. And I'm like, you need to call them because those payments are not hitting. And that's why your score is not going up either.
There's a place in town. I'm not even going to say what kind of place it is or anything, but car loans.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, like the other day we had a person and it's like literally 2 years
not reporting.
Oh my gosh,
yeah. Well, the thing too is that companies have to pay the credit bureaus to report. Okay. So, there's car dealerships here. Let's say it's not AutoNation, it's a smaller little car dealership. They'll report to one, but not the other two because they have to pay them, So they're like, you know what, we'll go ahead and do that. But they will be very quick to report when you default.
On all of them.
On all of them, yes. And they want to make it hard for you to get a car, so you have to pay them, So that's the thing. There's
I didn't know
factors.
that happened to me actually recently. It was a client we're gonna buy a house, and it was really sad because basically when they sold the note, so basically the mortgage sold, and you know how that happens. I mean, the servicing changes.
Yes.
So they sold the mortgage and they didn't report it. So first on the credit, you wouldn't see a mortgage.
Yeah.
So then when you call the mortgage to ask them to put it in and report it, like to say, hey, you have a mortgage, you're not reporting. Oh, okay, we're going to report it.
Yeah.
They had late payment.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So it was a whole
that's
circle.
Not good
I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
because
that's
these person were like really literally ready to close. And they weren't able to close because it's like, no, you have late mortgage payment. So very important fact, if you have a late payment on a mortgage, you cannot buy a house for 12 months.
Okay. I was going to ask you
and we have special programs if you are putting a bigger down payment and stuff like that, they might oversee it. But on a regular FHA conventional loan, if you have a late payment within the 12 months, 98.5% of the time, it won't work.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah, so I have a lot of customers that are, they'll go apply for a car or a mortgage, and I look at their report and I'm like, well, you have all these late payments on this car, and then you have late payments over here. I'm like, right now, no one's going to want to lend you anything. You're a liability to these companies. They are not going to give money to somebody that cannot make their payments right now. There's just no way.
Especially what kills me is, and I know why it is, because you normally forget the $20 minimum payment.
Oh, yes.
you make the 200, the 300, but the 10 minimum dollar payment or the $20 minimum payment. And it's normally when I'm going to tell you what it is. Okay. And this drives me insane. Because you go to Kohl's, you go to Macy's, you go to dealers, and what they tell you, do you want to apply for a credit card? We'll give you 5% off. Yeah. Dude, 5% off of $100 is
nothing.
$5. Don't do it. Yeah. And then you do it, and then they didn't tell you there's an annual fee, and then they charge you the annual fee. Then you have a minimum payment because you didn't even use the card, but you forgot about the minimum payment on the annual fee, and boom.
Let me tell you about the people that offer credit cards at the stores. They don't even know anything about credit. Okay. Whenever they ask me, I'm like, no, I don't want you hard pulling my credit. I don't want to have an inquiry at it. Oh, really? It affects your score? I'm like, yes. So when you're talking to people and you're offering credit card, Dillard's or Kohl's or anything like that, they need to let them know that because it affects your score. And most of the time, you're not going to get approved if you don't even have a credit card yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's why you always want to start with a secured credit card, start building something there. Unfortunately, when you don't have the credit, like I said before, you have to start somewhere. The interest rates are going to be high, but you're going to build your way to better
But that's
credit.
when you start building your credit, and then you start getting all the good.
Yes, you start getting all those offers. Eventually you'll get the 0% interest, so it's always good to start as soon as possible. A lot of people wait. I mean, there's people in their 50s, 60s that I get, and they're like, I have no credit. I'm like, golly, you need to start right now as soon as we leave.
What about the whole authorized cards and all that stuff?
So like an authorized user? Okay. So it's good to be an authorized user if the actual, like the primary is on time with their payments and not maxing it out. And what's really bad, this is what I get a lot of. So, you know, it's a boyfriend and girlfriend and they're authorized users and they break up. Well, they can't get off of the card because they don't talk to the girlfriend or boyfriend anymore. Their credit is bad because they defaulted on the card and they're like, I'm like, well, can you get a hold of this person? No, we don't talk anymore. And I'm like, well, you know what? You may want to try to call the credit card company because you're an authorized user. So they may be able to get you off. But that's scary because if you're like, didn't leave on good terms, they can max out the
Let
card.
me tell you about that. I have a lot of times boyfriend and girlfriend come and apply for a mortgage loan. Mm-hmm. And I literally asked so how serious is this? Because you don't qualify for the house by yourself and you don't qualify for the house. If you guys break up, you guys gonna have to be roommates.
Yeah, y'all are responsible
it's gonna
regardless.
Have to you know, it's like a divorce all over.
That's what I say. I always, when I recommend them to do that, I'm like, but you have to make sure you trust each other. And this is like, you know, a relationship that is long term, because if something happens, you're stuck with that, you know, especially if they default.
Right.
So,
so where do we find you?
So
besides myself sending you clients, where does the people that are listening to us, where do they find you?
Okay, so I am, again, my company's A&GE Credit Repair. I'm located right next to Claudia at 2401 Cimarron Suite 105. I'm right here by the Saltwater Grill in the same little shopping center.
So we're neighbors.
Yeah, so we're neighbors. And I do have a Facebook. So again, A&GE Credit Repair. You can call me on 361-489-8273. I always have my phone. When you have your own business, like, you know, you constantly are getting calls, regardless if it's late night, morning, you know, reasonable hours. But I always have my phone with me if you have any questions at all.
So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask you, and this is I'm going to put her on the spot. I know April, we're going to have our home buyer seminar with Lisa and Jason Flores, because I have it every second Thursday of the month. In April, I'm going to invite you, and I'm going to invite all of you guys that have questions about credit, and she'll give free consultation that day.
Definitely.
So that would be a good way. So we're going to put it on the flyers, and I haven't told Lisa. So Lisa's going to have to listen to the podcast, but I haven't told Lisa. But
no problem.
I think that will help if you come and we can, because we pull credit there at the home buyer seminar.
Yes.
And then that way you can talk to the people right there and then if they're not ready.
And one thing is, I know how to read reports, because those reports can be tricky.
Oh,
you know?
they are very tricky.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to have is, you know, we go off, you know, monitoring sites and stuff, but I've had a lot of people send me different reports, so I'm able to understand in the codes and all that good stuff. To look all that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And what is your number? So if not, do they call you, or how do they reach out to you? They can call me again, 361-489-8273. That's my business phone. You can call me at the office, 361-221-1771. Okay, so we'll put it on our remarks, and so you can have the contact for her. Thank you so much for joining us.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. It's not that hard.
No,
it's just conversational. It's just it's just fun. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week on episode 9. Bye.